I'll get to watch this postcard. Okay. How's that done now? Ouch. Damn it. doing? Yeah, I could. Yeah, okay. Good. And then I'll keep on. There's no.
As humans, we are an extremely resilient species. Every day someone survives an impossible situation and they discover what they are truly made of. Sometimes in our own lives, we encounter a dangerous situation that makes us all say, how did I survive that? From surviving being trapped under ice to being hit by a train, we're talking about some of the most impressive survival stories out there. Well, how's it going, YouTube? I'm your host, Before we get started, I want to know if you guys had any scary experiences. Let me know in the comment section below. And also the merch right here. We pretty much finalized the design, and it's going to be time for me to announce to you guys the launch of the most amazing shop. The announcement for that is coming pretty soon. We're almost done with all the design. Description below of the merch shop, so make sure you guys stay tuned. This is the top 10 scary times. 13 months and survive. Is this real life right now? With just a few basic necessities and an empty ice chest, Jose Alvarenga managed to survive for over 1 year at sea by himself. He was a very experienced fisherman and he knew his way around the ocean. But even the most experienced people are no match for the strength of a tropical storm. Just a few hours into his journey, a storm hit him and it lasted for 5 days. It was impossible to steer the boat and he had lost all of his directions. He had no idea which way was what. He survived a giant of turtles, small birds, sharks, and rainwater. I don't know how he caught a shark. Well, after 438 days, he managed to swim to a small island where 2 locals found him naked, clutching a knife, and shouting in Spanish. He was treated in a hospital before he was reunited with his family in El Salvador. He's the first person in recorded history to be able to survive at sea for over 1 year on a small boat. A record you really don't want. The man who was forced to drink blood in the desert takes us to number 9. Mauro Prosperi enrolled to participate in a 6-day race through the Sahara Desert. That sounds awful, and I'm not sure why anyone would go out of their way, to sign up for such an intense race, but that's what he decided to do. Well, unfortunately, a sandstorm caused Prosperi to take shelter and camp out for the rest of the night, but when he woke up, he was very disoriented, and he realized that he's lost in the desert. Unknowingly, he started to travel in the right direction, where he eventually stumbled across a Muslim shrine. He ran out of food and water within the first 24 hours, so he had to drink his own pee. But once he got to the shrine, he saw bats there and decided to drink their blood in order to quench his thirst. So he drank the blood of 20 bats over the course of 3 days, and when he didn't see any signs of being rescued, he tried to take his own life.
Evidentemente c'è qualcosa, forse riesco a salvarmi.
I'm glad he was able to push his limits in order to persevere and survive. He is truly an inspiration. Nobody would talk about a woman who survived 42 days without food. I mean, wow, that is actually super impressive. I can't even survive 12 hours without food. Helen Glavin was 21 years old at the time, and she was trying to travel between Fairbanks and Seattle. She decided to save some money and fly with an amateur pilot. I have no idea why anyone would decide to do that. It turned out to be a horrible mistake, well, obviously, clearly, because their plane crashed on February 4th, 1963. They landed in a remote part of the Canadian wilderness, but thankfully Glavin and the pilot managed to survive the crash landing. But they didn't have any survival supplies. They only had matches and a few cans of sardines. The future of them seemed pretty bleak. A week went by and they completely ran out of food. All they had left to survive was melted snow. They were both overweight, so they could survive off their own body fat. And they were able to survive for the next 42 days until a plane finally spotted them. Trapped under the World Trade Center for 27 hours comes in at number 7. This story is remarkable. On September 11, 2001, Janelle Guzman McMillan, well, she was working at her office in the World Trade Center when she heard an explosion outside. As she raced down the stairs, she can literally feel the building starting to collapse around her. So for the next 27 hours, she was pinned underneath the rubble at ground zero until a rescue dog was able to save her.
I was just begging and pleading with God to, show me a sign, give me a miracle or something. And I put my hand up, and that's when Paul grabbed my hand and called me by name and told me, he's not going to let me go, I'm going to be fine.
Doctors did tell her that she would never be able to walk again. Well, you know what? She is now defying all odds here because she is now walking and running. This is just an amazing story about human survival and how you can literally do anything that you set your mind to. Because surviving for 27 hours underneath a building, well, that takes a really strong mind. A car and a train come crashing onto this list at number 6. A 46-year-old homeless man by the name of Robert Evans, well, he's had his share of bad luck. In the span of just 7 hours, he was hit by a car, and then he was struck by a train. Is this real life right now? First, he was involved in a hit and run when a car hit him while he was riding his bike. He was immediately rushed to the hospital where he was treated for minor injuries. But after being released from the hospital the same day, he was hit by a train as he was crossing the tracks with his bike. I mean, that bike is just so bad luck. He was thrown in the air and he fell 10 feet into a creek below him. He was lucky in the sense that he didn't suffer from serious injuries. But to top it all off, he was given a ticket for trespassing because the bridge that he was trying to cross on is a restricted area. I mean, come on, can't this poor guy catch a break? He should have been given a lifetime supply of train tickets or maybe a new bike, one that's not cursed. Number 5, we're talking about a woman who woke up from a 20-year coma. Sarah Scantlin was only 18 years old when she suffered from a traumatic brain injury. She was hit by a drunk driver when she was thrown into oncoming traffic, and she was hit again. A car likely drove over her skull, and doctors said that Sarah would survive, but she would never wake up again. The damage to her brain was so extensive, and they had no way of knowing is she really there or if the damage had left her in a vegetative state. But 20 years later, when all hope was lost, Sarah actually woke up. Her parents couldn't believe the news and raced to the hospital to talk to their daughter for the first time in 2 decades. Number 4, we have a man bitten by a black mamba snake. It takes 2 drops of the black mamba venom to kill a human. Their venom contains neurotoxins that slow down the nervous system and eventually paralyzes their victim. Without anti-venom, the fatality rate from a black mamba snake is 100%. So with all that taken into consideration, how the heck did this guy survive? Well, back in 1998, Danny Pienaar was a research student working in South Africa. One day he went out on an expedition, but he didn't let anyone know where he was going. That was his first mistake. He was in the water when all of a sudden he felt a sharp sting on his back of his knee. His worst nightmare was becoming his new scary reality. He knew that he was bitten by the deadly and the venomous black mamba snake, and if he had any chance of surviving, he had to move fast. He tried to race back to his car, but the venom was already taking over his body. He tried to apply a tourniquet to his leg, but he knew he was living on borrowed time. He made his way out of the jungle, hopped into his car, and raced away until he saw another car. By that time, he made it to the hospital. It had already been 2 hours since he was bitten, so he could no longer swallow, speak, or move. Luckily, he was able to show doctors that he was not in a coma, and they were able to give him the anti-venom. And you know what? Note to self, never travel alone in South Africa without black mamba anti-venom. I've been to South Africa. absolutely terrified. There's a lot of things that can kill you down there. And now at number 3, we have a woman who was trapped under ice for 80 minutes. Anna Begenholm was skiing when she lost control of her skis, and she fell headfirst into a layer of ice on a frozen stream. A hole opened up in the ice, and her head and torso were pulled underwater. She became trapped underneath the ice, which was 20 centimeters, roughly about 8 inches thick. It's pretty thick. Thankfully, she was able to find an air pocket underneath the ice, but she was also battling with hypothermia. During this time, her body temperature dropped down to 56.7 degrees Fahrenheit, which is one of the lowest surviving body temperatures in recorded history. After she was rescued by her friend, she was transported by helicopter to the nearest hospital. She woke up 10 days later and she was paralyzed from the neck down. But after months of physical therapy, she has almost made a full recovery. Number 2, we have a survival story about a tsunami. A family of 5 were on vacation in Thailand when all of a sudden they were swept away by a massive tsunami when they were outside relaxing by the pool. They saw a huge wave bulldoze its way through the hotel, and the mother was tossed through a plate glass window. After being submerged and dragged underwater for more than 3 minutes, she finally surfaced and clung to a tree, clinging on to dear life. She was scared, she was alone, she thought that she was going to die, but then she saw her son floating in the water, so she went to rescue him. What a hero. They were trapped in the water, grasping to a tree trunk. She was heavily bleeding. She thought this was the end for her, but a Thai man rescued them and brought them to a hospital. She didn't think that the rest of her family survived, but miraculously enough, all 5 of them were able to survive and they were reunited. There's a lot more to the story, so if you guys want to know exactly what happened, well, they actually made a movie based on this. The movie is called The Impossible, and I'd highly recommend watching it. A horrific climbing accident comes onto this list. Let's travel back to 1985, when Joe Simpson and Simon Yates decided to climb the west face of Sula Grande, which is a mountain located in Peru. Their dream quickly became a nightmare when they were hit with a devastating storm that nearly killed them. Earlier, Simpson broke his leg as they were attempting to climb down the mountain. The 2 hikers thought this was an immediate death sentence, but they kept on trekking down the mountain. When the blizzard came, Simpson was lowered onto an overhanging ledge, and at that point, his rope had run out. As he was dangling there, Simpson knew that eventually Yates would lose his footing and tumble past him, killing them both. Yates had to make the hardest and most impossible decision of his life. He decided to sever the rope in order to save himself. He put himself in a lot of danger to save his friend, but ultimately he had to cut the rope or else both would have died.
I was being pulled from the cliff. He couldn't get back up, and I took a decision, as you say, to cut the rope. But my big problem was, what do I do? And it was only when I remembered I'd got a knife that the solution to the predicament that I was in presented itself, I suppose.
So Simpson plummeted into an icy cave, which looked like it would be his final resting place. But, I mean, you guys clicked on this video. Miraculously enough, 3 days later, he defied all odds and made it back to the base camp alive. Absolutely no idea how. What an impossible ending to that story. But this is the end of the video. I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next Most Amazing Top 10 video.
I will be close.
We're often all encouraged to spend more time in nature, to explore the forests, lakes, and mountains of our home countries. You know, that it's good for the soul. And for many, these places are a sanctuary, far removed from the dangers and grime of the modern city. But for some, this search for a serene spot in the countryside brings them face to face with fear, danger, and mystery. Here are 10 spooky wilderness mysteries. Number 10 is knocking at the door. Several years ago, Redditor Shadow Handler was staying in a cabin in a remote part of the Idaho wilderness with a friend. The cabin itself was up a narrow track 50 miles from the nearest town. At midnight, the two friends were lying in bunk beds laughing about something when they heard a loud scraping noise at the door. Just as one asked the other, "Did you hear that?" someone or something knocked loudly on the wooden door of the cabin. The friends were in disbelief that anyone could have found the cabin, and they were especially concerned that when challenged, whoever was at the door did not answer, they just knocked. They waited for someone to get out of the door. When they investigated outside, there were no tracks in the ground, as if whatever it was had never existed. Number 9 is The Rider. Redditor Rooly Bear shared his experience of being involved in a spooky wilderness mystery. He and a few friends were riding quad bikes across remote desert trails one night. While they were taking a break for a moment, they heard a noise. It was another quad biker. He asked if he could ride alongside them. On a narrow trail, they set off once more, with the mysterious quad biker at the back of the line. As they reached the top of the hill, which looked over the landscape, the bikers looked back to see their new companion had vanished, even though he had been there moments before. Looking down at the desert, there were no lights, and when they killed their engines, they should have heard him, even if he was some distance away. But there was no hum of an engine. The Phantom Rider had completely vanished. Number 8 is Digging in the Woods. Another online poster shared their story. They were exploring a remote area in their car. The idea was that since they didn't know the area well, that they could scout it out first, then identify some good hiking routes that they could later tackle on foot. Turning onto a long stretch of track, they continued until reaching a dead end. Realizing it was getting dark, they drove back the way they came. The return journey was very different. Halfway along the road, the dim figure of a man in tattered clothes came into view. He was covered in dirt and carrying a shovel. Clearly, he had been digging something in the woods. Shocked, friends drove past him as he stared at them. They never found out what the man was doing out there in the middle of nowhere in the dark like that, what he was digging up, or what he was burying. Number 7 is Nearly There. One member of a search and rescue unit going by the handle Pmon13 shared an eerie story about a missing persons case. Two men were hiking across a backcountry trail when one of them began to feel ill. Knowing that they were close to where they parked their car, the sick man's friend agreed to go to the car and get some medication for him. He left the man sitting in the middle of the trail, but when he returned, the sick man had vanished. The search and rescue team thought it would be easy to find the man, seeing as that it was a busy park and he had been missing only for a short while. Despite bringing in sniffer dogs and countless park rangers, all they found was the man's phone and a few personal items. Theories about the disappearance include the man having taken drugs or that he was taken by something else entirely. Number 6 is The Scent. One story circulating about strange mysteries in the wilderness is an unnerving encounter in the mountains north of Idaho City. A father and son were hunting in the woods when they smelled something burning. Suddenly, something rushed through the trees towards them. The father instinctively grabbed his son and
You didn't hear me come in?
Yeah,
he come in, but
they both lay as still as possible.
stop
The
it.
son was
You
not
haven't seen
found.
it come,
But when the son looked up, he saw that an entire
I
elephant
realized,
they headed for the car after that.
I realized
But
it,
whatever was in the forest soon
evening.
followed. Once
And
again,
it's
they
like,
heard the sound
I
of
couldn't
something
live with
rushing
that.
through the trees.
So you
But
couldn't-
this time,
I couldn't
even though it
live
was
with
dusk,
that either.
the sky around them lit up like daylight. When the light dimmed, they made it back to the car, but they were never quite sure what they had encountered out there. Number 5 is The Lone Gunshot. Redditor Verdict_US posted about a frightening experience that he had in 2012. At the time, he was with a couple of friends and had been camping in Northern California for 3 months straight. Things were going great, that was, until they hiked south and then set up camp just as the sun began to set. After relaxing for a while beneath the stars, they went to sleep. In the middle of the night, they woke to the sound of voices in the distance. Worse still, one of the voices wasn't just talking, it was screaming. As the friends strained their ears to hear what was being said, a solitary gunshot echoed out across the nocturnal landscape. The screaming stopped, so did the other two voices, replaced by the eeriness of the silent night. They never found out what had happened, but they could guess, and I'm sure you could too. Number 4 is camouflage. A common experience when in a forest is to feel like you're being watched. Most of the time, it's nothing, but in some instances, that unsettling feeling of being watched is there for a reason. Take the example of one Redditor who used to go on climbing trips with some friends. One time, her friend left her bag outside of the tent overnight. When they woke in the morning, the contents had been rummaged through. They thought that it must have been an animal. The following year, however, they camped on the same spot. It was dark and the only light was from the campfire. That was when they noticed something moving. A man in camouflage gear lying on his stomach watching the group. When he realized he had been spotted, he disappeared, and they never found out who he was or what he would have done had he not been seen. Number 3 are unknown tracks. Blogger The Vertical Adventurer came across an unsettling mystery while exploring Mount Mee National Park in Australia. He was fascinated by the creeks there, and the surrounding forest was lush green and life-affirming. He was fascinated by the creeks there, and the surrounding forest was lush green and life-affirming. As he crossed a creek on a tree log which had fallen across the water, he noticed something on a sandy bank. Clear as day, he could see some massive paw prints. Alongside them was a small set of similar prints. The blogger realized that the animal had young offspring with it and had crossed the creek across the fallen tree like he had. There was just one problem. No known animal in Australia could have made those tracks. Despite being an experienced explorer, the Vertical Adventurer took some photos and left the area as quickly and quietly as he could for fear of disturbing something huge and unknown. Number 2 is a new friend. One couple, while hiking on a trail to Springer Mountain, encountered a man who offered to drive them to a nearby campsite. The man drove through the wilderness with them, but ranted about how his wife was currently in labor and he was just out to clear his mind for a while. He then pulled up outside a strange old house in the woods. He persuaded the couple to take some pictures in front of the house, urging them to smile in one photo and then look angry in the next. Worried, they persuaded the man to finally drive them to the campsite. The couple waited at the campsite for a while after leaving the man, and then decided to drive their own car to a nearby hotel just to be safe. When they did, they saw the man sitting in his car at the campsite, watching them. They never found out who he was or whose house that was in the woods. And number 1 is the Wendigo. One Redditor was camping with a group of parents and kids in Alberta, Canada. They were sitting around the campfire the first night when from somewhere around them came a horrible low growl, followed by a shrieking metallic whine. Frightened, the group returned to their tents. The next morning, few of them had slept. They all heard the same noise during the night, the sound of a baby crying. Some of the parents got up and searched the camp, but they found nothing. The next night, an emaciated man with long matted black hair obscuring his face was seen walking towards them in the darkness, and that was enough. They picked up their stuff and left. They believed that they had encountered something there that was supernatural, but what that thing was exactly and what would have happened to them had they stayed, they still to this day do not know. More than mere ghost story, tales of people encountering shadow people have been circulating for ages, but the most unsettling part is just how similar all of the stories are. Thousands of people have reported seeing these paranormal creatures, yet we don't know what they are or what they want. All we know for now is that they are truly terrifying. Here are 10 creepy encounters people had with shadow people.